Everybody, and welcome back to the WM32 Football podcast. Today, I've been joined by a familiar face and voice to many of you, as he has featured on the podcast before, but in very, very different circumstances. So today, I've been joined by none other than Joe Stonell. Good to have you on today, Joe. And hopefully, we're going to talk about something a little bit more uplifting than when we've had you on the podcast previously. I was talking about the club that you support, Tottenham. And so today, Joe, what we're going to look at for you is we're going to almost talk about the day job and what you do. So if I recall, you are a sports coach of some description.
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay, excellent. So how long have you been coaching, whether it be various sports or football? How long have you been doing it?
Yeah, probably about six or so years now. Because I started when I was around 16. So yeah, I'd say 6 years now. Obviously, my main sport is football. But for my job, I obviously have to dip in and out of other sports as well. I've done a year of PE. So obviously you can't just do football all year round, unfortunately. But I've been coaching in football teams as well, in many different situations for these 6 years as well now. So yeah,
So you've mentioned briefly there about your coaching journey in terms of the fact that you've coached not only just football, other sports as well, and you've been coaching other teams. So when did that take me right the way back then to the start of your coaching journey? Take me all the way back.
God, that does feel a long time ago now. So I must have just been coming out of upper school. And I was thinking about, okay, what do I want to do when I leave school? And I've always loved football. It's literally, I live and breathe football. I annoy people on a daily basis because all I do is talk football. So I was thinking, I want to stay in that. And obviously I was looking at all the different aspects what you can get into, and I just thought coaching, because it's you're sort of giving back in a way, aren't you? And you're still involved. You can help develop players. So while I was literally just getting into college, because I'd done a sports studies course at college to help me with my coaching, I looked into helping out my brother's team to start off with. So I was sort of like, I wasn't like the assistant manager because I weren't always there on a Saturday because I was still trying to play. So I was more like, let's put it like a first team coach. I'll do the odd training session here and there. So that was my first sort of step into football coaching for my brother's team.
Nice. Would you say then that you've always wanted to be a coach? I know you mentioned there that it was an avenue that you thought about doing after leaving, as you mentioned there, like upper school, high school, secondary school, however you want to put it. But is it something that you've always wanted to do, or is it something that's just been a thought of yours, really?
I guess it has sort of been something I've always wanted to do. Obviously, when you're in school, you're never 100% sure what you want to do until you sort of get into it, because you never know the full situation until you're in it. But yeah, I probably started thinking about it when I was when I was 15 or so. I was thinking, I think the coaching is the way to go, because obviously, when you're growing up, you see loads of different types of coaches, and you think, that could be a good thing to do. Like, people inspire you. So, it sort of pushes you into that sort of direction. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I quite like that. I quite like that. So when you were growing up, and like you mentioned there about seeing all these different coaches, were you actively trying to take bits from each coach that you came across and thought, oh yeah, I quite like that, and if I was to be a coach, this is how I would do it, or was it a case of you going, well, actually, I don't particularly like that, so I'm not going to use that if and when I do become a coach?
This is going to be where it probably gets a bit interesting, because when I was obviously younger, probably because when I started playing football when I was about 5 or 6. So obviously when I'm that age, I'm not thinking, oh yeah, I want to be a coach. Obviously, you're too young for that. But yeah, I had the same coach from when I was 5 to 6 till I was I think I was around 14, 13. And I'm not going to lie, that he was a great man. I've got a lot of respect for him, but he didn't have a clue about football, bless him. He was more of a rugby guy. And I remember once we went to training. And he went, oh yeah, I was playing FIFA with my son earlier, and we saw this on the training part, on the skill game, so we're going to try it in training. And it was probably one of the weirdest training sessions I'd ever had. I was thinking, he doesn't have a clue what he's doing here. He's completely out of his depth. And he was. But then obviously I moved teams, and I had a coach who knew a bit more about football, had a deeper understanding. I don't think he had the qualifications as such. I think it was stuff what he saw when he went to watch football teams play. He was trying to recreate that, but it was a lot better. And then the last coach who I had was absolutely clueless. So I think a lot of things, I haven't taken many things out of the coaches who I've had, I have to admit. Maybe more from my second coach, but that was probably more man management, small-sided sort of game scenarios. I took a lot away from my third coach on things not to do. I have to admit, because he just didn't have a clue. So yeah.
Okay. So with that, then, would you say then that the second coach that you had was perhaps somebody that you looked up to, and are there any other coaches that you see now that you sort of look up to and that inspire you?
Yeah, I would say I've tried to do quite a few things what the second coach done for me, because as I said, he probably didn't have the qualifications, and I think he would agree with that. But he was just a great guy. If anything was ever going wrong, he always dealt with it in the best way he could. And he was just sort of like an approachable guy, so you could feel like you could talk about your opinions on the games. Because believe it or not, I was a goalkeeper, so obviously I had quite a good view of the pitch and of the shape and everything. So I used to try and talk to him about what I saw sometimes. So then that way he could maybe try and work on that in training. And I think we had quite a good relationship, and which was good. But other coaches who I look up to, and I know you know this for certain, but obviously Poch, like being a big Tottenham fan and everything, and obviously Poch was with us for ages, pretty much throughout my whole coaching journey, really. He's someone I've always looked up to, like for many different reasons, for the way he handles different situations, for his coaching philosophy, for like just the way his teams play, for the way it's just someone I've always looked up to be honest. Obviously, you've got the other coaches as well, like Pep. You can't fault Pep at all. just the way teams play football is amazing. And obviously, I think every coach would absolutely love your teams to play the way Pep does. I don't think anyone can deny that. But you've got to have a lot of different ideas. So I think looking up to different coaches, you can get lots of different ideas of ways to play based off of the players you have at your disposal. Yeah.
I mean, the array of coaches there, especially the other two that you've mentioned, Pochettino and Guardiola, they're not bad coaches to look up to, especially. If you was to try and define and I know this has been a buzzword around coaching, especially over the last, say, 6-7 years, or probably within your coaching journey, the buzzword of philosophy. And I think, Louis van Gaal was probably the first person that really brought that to light when he come to Manchester United those years ago. But if you was to say what your coaching philosophy is, what would it be if you could say what it was or what it is?
That's the thing. I'm always thinking about this, to be honest, because I personally think this is a hard question because it all depends on the players you have. And obviously, where we are, we're not at a stage where we can go and we want to fit. Obviously, they're at an age where you can, like from my example, like I coach under 11s now, so you can try and mould them into a certain style of playing. But for some of them, it will be hard. And I've sort of noticed this through the different teams who I have coached. Because, for example, with my under 15s, that was the first season I coached where I was the main sort of guy. I was still trying to gain what I wanted to get out of them. So sort of that was like a trial season, if that makes sense. And then with my under 16s, I wanted them to get the ball down, keep the possession for as much as we can, but be decisive. Like, not just keep hold of it for keep's sake, because I personally don't see the point of that. Because if you're just going to keep the ball, it just gives the other team a chance to get into a shape. So you've got to be quick. You've got to be moving that ball, 2-3 touches max, to get into dangerous areas, and to cause other team problems. And under 16s, we saw that and we done really well. But then we went up to under 18s. We were in Division 1, and the team what we had was a complete mixed ability, mixed social groups. It was just like probably about 3-4 different groups of people in that. They didn't all get on, and it was hard to bring in a philosophy into that team. I worked hard for quite a while with that, but it just didn't work. So I think that the thing what I'd say about philosophy is that where, especially in grassroots, it is hard, and you've got to be. Well, I'm trying to think of the right word. Flexible.
Adaptable.
Yeah, adaptable. That's the word I was looking for. Because if you're too stubborn, because I did try. I think I tried it for a little bit too long with my under 18s. I admit that. You can lose some of the players, because obviously the players need to have confidence in you as a coach. And if you're losing week in, week out, you are going to lose the confidence, and you might, and you'll need to change the way you try and set your teams up, because you've got to play with what you've got, because you can't, like, for example, you're not going to see MK Dons going to try and outpass Barcelona, are you? Because they don't have them players for that, if that makes sense. So, yeah, you've just got to be adaptable, as you said, I think. But if I had to, I'll it's just keeping the ball, minimal amount of touches, but moving the ball forward. Obviously, it is hard to explain. Like, you want to, your first line of defence is your attackers, your pressing. Yeah, it's hard to explain really, because I haven't thought about it in that much detail, because I'm not really in a situation with my under 11s where I can be like, oh, we need to play like this constantly, if that makes sense.
Okay. That last point you made there actually comes and leads me on quite nicely then to my next question, which is, in terms of playing styles, would you say you, as a coach, you have a defined way of playing, whether that be, we are going to play through the thirds at all costs, and we are going to be a highly possession-based team, or is it a more counter-attacking base where, you sit in quite deep and then look to exploit spaces and gaps in behind defences that way? So would you say it's a defined playing style that you've got with this under-11s group that you coach currently, or is it dependent on the group that you are working with? So it might change depending on the players that you've got.
Yeah. I do like to try and play through the thirds. So like the way I set up my team is we set up, because we play 9-a-side at under 11s. We set up in a 1-3-4-1, and my centre back is a ball playing centre back. He hadn't played centre back before this season. He's more like a sort of right mid, right back sort of player, but he's always been good with the ball. So I've sort of put him at centre back because he's very good defensively. He's very, very calm on the ball, and if he's playing centre back and he gets the ball, he's not just going to hoof it. He's going to look to play out, keep the ball, but he looks to play it forward as well. And I've noticed when he hasn't been there or hasn't played, it has a massive effect on the rest of the team, because whoever else you put there sort of panics and boots the ball, and then we actually struggle because we're not playing the way I've tried to sort of coach them. Because we actually are quite a good footballing side in our division for our age group, because we get the ball, get it out wide. So we've got some very attacking, quick wingers who can cause teams problems. We do look to play it in behind as well sometimes, but not just a hoof. It's sort of more like a through ball from the centre mids down the wings. But I guess that is sort of playing with what we've got as well, because we've got 3-4 very good wingers. We've got a ball playing centre back. We've got centre mids who have passing range for their age, but also players, another centre mid who literally runs. He must run like a marathon every game, even at 9-a-side. So I guess my playing style is getting the ball down, playing through the thirds, but trying to be decisive with where with our attacking as well, not just keeping it just to wear down the other team, because at under 11s you don't see that really. It is sort of like more end to end than to be honest. But you see a lot of under 11s teams who, and it does work at this age, which is frustrating, who just smash the ball forward, just to their quick striker. They have the person at the back who's got the biggest kick and they just smash it forward and then they're in. But my personal opinion on that is that you're bypassing the whole midfield there. So the midfield aren't actually learning anything from that game because they're not getting into moments where they can make a difference. They can't make mistakes. They can't make the right passes. So they can't learn. They're literally being bypassed. And that's something what I've never done, because obviously, especially like you want your players to develop, and I feel the way I set my team out to play is that they do develop, and they have developed really well. So I think, with playing styles, it does affect your players' development massively at certain ages as well. Yeah.
I think we got to the gist of your playing style in the end. So thanks for that, Joe. So with the players then that you work with or have worked with previously, would you say that there are certain qualities that you look for in a player? I know you've said there it's obviously, like previously, it's quite difficult for you because you don't necessarily have any form of like transfers or anything like that. But the ones that you have worked with, is there any? What are the qualities that you would say you would look for in a particular player that comes to, or that is looking to join your team, for example?
Well, a big thing for me is just being calm on the ball, because if you're panicking when you get the ball, I feel that's actually one of the hardest things to coach. To be honest with you, and plus it takes a long time to get players out of that. And in the way we play, it's keeping the ball under difficult circumstances at times, and just trying to play it on rather than just clearing it. So I think that is a massive quality what I look for, just being calm. And I think that is so important at any age, because, for example, with my under 11s, if they're panicking on the ball and they're just clearing it whenever someone comes up to them, then they're missing out on so many different skills. They're missing out on trying to turn out of trouble, different ranges of passing. They're missing out on the strength part as well, for example, like to battle to win the ball. Another quality is it's not so much in the playing ability, but teamwork. Like that's probably the biggest quality what I look for, just because from what I've seen through my coaching journey, through the teams what I've coached, that has been a big issue for some of my teams. Like for my under 16s team, we was very close to winning the league. We got to the Shield final and we was having a great season, but then the team sort of got disjointed for different reasons, and we ended up losing the league. We still won the Shield, but I think we would have won the league if it weren't for the differences what happened between teammates and myself. So teamwork and togetherness is a massive thing what I look for, because you can tell that in a player almost straight away, I feel. Because if they're trying to get other people involved, if they're being supportive, if they're you've got a good team player in there. But if they're in their first training session, if they're moaning at other players, if they're moaning at little things, you think, oh, this lad's going to be a hard one to crack. yeah, I'd say they're my main qualities, what I look for, to be honest. Just nice and simple, because you're there to coach them and to help develop their skills. So you can't go, oh yeah, we want this, this, and this, because then you're not going to be really creating them skills for them, if that makes any sense.
A little bit. I kind of see the gist of where you're coming from. So you mentioned there about the qualities that you look for, obviously being calm on the ball, and having a player that works hard for the team. Would you say that you would have a bias then towards those types of players as a coach? So, for example, if a player was to come to you and wants to join your team or whatnot, would you say you have a bias then for those types of characteristics on a player versus a player that perhaps doesn't have those characteristics but could be equally as good as a player technically and tactically and all the other aspects of being a player?
Yeah, I have to admit that is probably true. Like, I've actually got a perfect example of this season. So we had a few new players join us at the start of the season, and there's this one player, excuse me, who technically for the age what we play at is probably one of the best players in the league. We've had coaches after games we played, that player there, he's fantastic. His passing's phenomenal. And they are correct. Like, some of the play he does do is you sort of stand there and think, no way is he 10. But we've had quite a few problems with him this season, where his attitude towards his teammates hasn't been good enough. So he hasn't started every game. Obviously, I don't do that under 11s anyway, but there's been times where I was going to be starting him, but then in a warm-up or training before the match, he's not been very nice or something, so I'll drop him. And we've had a few circumstances like that. Then we've had times on the pitch where he's moaned at people, so we take him off, and we've had to take him off multiple times in a game before. Because I just don't think that's something you should be standing for as a coach, because it is a team game at the end of the day. And you want to be, and you want your players to be having fun. You want them to be developing well. And if they're getting moaned at constantly, they're not going to be having fun, and they won't be developing. Because if you're having a go at someone for trying something, what they might not have tried before, they might not try that certain skill, that certain pass again. So that means they're not going to be developing that. So yeah, we've got that player, but then we've got this other lad who also joined the team this season. He literally, at the start of the season, he wouldn't say a word. He would just work for the team. Technically, he isn't anywhere near the level. Well, he wasn't anywhere near the level of this other lad, but he has come on so much because he's got the right attitude towards his team, towards his training. So he's actually probably played a little bit more than this other lad, just because of his attitude. And he's calm on the ball as well. And he never, and he does make mistakes, but then he works hard to get it back, and he won't stop trying the things what he's made mistakes in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, completely. And it's quite interesting there that you bring up the fact that there's been sort of two different types of player, and that one type of player is actually, or from what it sounds like by what you're saying, one has sort of progressed that little bit more than the other player. despite the fact that the other player may have been more ahead in their development than this other player already. So really, really good example that, Joe. Thanks for that. Looking at yourself now, and you as a coach in a little bit more deep, would you want to gain any more coaching qualifications to the ones that you've already got, or are you happy with where you're at in terms of coaching at the minute?
To be honest, at the minute, I'm probably happy with where I'm at, because I'm 22 now. I feel I'm in a good position at the minute with what I've got. And I feel if I keep pushing for more qualifications, then I will have to leave my under-11 team, which is something what I don't want to do. Because last season I started my UEFA B, and I'm still currently doing that. But last season I couldn't be with my under-11s all the time, because, as you well know, for UEFA B, you sort of need to be in and around an 11-a-side team to get across what the course wants you to get out of it. So I was missing matches for my under-11s to be with the under-18s, because obviously that was the priority. But this season I've found a Sunday team to be coaching with for my 11-a-side, while I can still focus on the under-11s, because I'm enjoying that. It's refreshing because you see them develop, and I think that's a big thing for me. It's just seeing them develop. I get so much reward out of that. I get so much joy of seeing how far they have come, and I feel on a time element, I'm struggling to coach two teams at the minute, so I feel I'm happy where I am. Obviously, you want to be pushing yourself, so like CPD events, that them sort of things are great, but I don't want to be putting myself in a situation where I'm putting the under-11s at where I'm not making the under-11s miss out, because they haven't really had a secure coach for that long. They've had so many different coaches throughout their journey already, which I don't think's fair. So yeah, I think I'm quite happy with where I am at the minute, to be honest. Like a goalkeeping one, because I've already done my level 1 goalkeeping. I might do my level 2 goalkeeping, because that won't affect my under-11s. But that's probably about it, to be honest with you.
Well, interesting thoughts there from yourself, Joe, and obviously good luck with the remainder of your UEFA B course. Obviously hope that you pass that as well. You mentioned there about sort of CPD events and things like that. Do you think, and they're obviously there to help coaches with different things and hopefully help them get better. But what would you say, what else could be done to help coaches develop further in your eyes?
I personally think seeing other coaches coach, I really believe in that. Like, even, for example, if they're not even the best coach, because I'm not going to lie, I've gone to other training sessions to help out and potentially watch coaches before or during the session who have just done things completely wrong, and you think, oh, that can't be right, that's not right, that's not good. So then you think, oh, I have to make sure I never do that. But also try to get yourself a mentor. I think is quite a big thing. So trying to get a coach who can help you along the way. trying to help you along the way by putting on sessions for you potentially. So that way you can look up, take bits out of that session, and just someone who you can ask for help for. Because I think a lot of coaches, myself included, at times have tried to do too much by ourselves. But I think it's good to have like a mentor, someone. Okay, I've tried this, it hasn't worked. Could you potentially help me out? Maybe show me a way to do it differently, or else you could be stuck in the same loop for quite some time. So that's something what I would say. Get yourself a mentor or someone who you can go and watch, even if it's like every other week or twice a month, something like that. Someone you can go and watch, just to take a few things from. Because as people say, coaches are the best thieves. We steal things from other coaches to help ourselves. But so a mentor or just a coach who you can go and watch a few times is a big thing for me personally.
Brilliant. I think the some fantastic points you made there as well, and I think the mentor thing is quite a big one as well. I know the FA are trying to do a little bit more in terms of getting mentors. Obviously, I know they've changed the coaching qualification, so instead of coaches being assessed on course, they get in situ visits, and it's more about the coach and in their environments. I think the FA are trying to make courses a bit more personal to those on them, and whatnot. But no, some really, really good points again that you've made there, Joe. This next question's almost got two parts to it. So the first part is: has there been any bit of advice that a coach has given you that has stuck with you? And then the second part would be any advice that you would give to somebody who was in a similar situation like yourself all those years ago.
This might sound silly, to be honest, but one of the biggest advices from what I've had is literally just coach what you see. Because I've gone into, I know it sounds basic, it sounds really, really basic, but if you dissect it, I think a lot of people would have done what I've done as well. Because you go into a session with a plan. You're like, I want to get this, for example, you switch in play. I want to get this sorted tonight. I want to be sorting this out. But then in the session, you're so noticing something else which keeps going wrong, which needs addressing. If you leave that just to get your point across, that team isn't going to develop as much as if you coach the mistake what they're making. And I think that is a big piece of advice what I got, because I think I was just trying to stick to my plan too much, trying to get across what I wanted to, rather than actually coach what they needed to be coached. Because it might even just be a 5-minute thing in that session. You need to shape up in this way to receive the ball. Just something as simple as that. But if you don't coach that, then that's then going to have an effect on what you're actually trying to put across. And a piece of advice what I would give, obviously I'd give that advice, but something for myself as well is make sure you're confident with what you're delivering. Because if you're going into a session and you're a bit wary of it, you're thinking, I'm not sure if this is going to work, I'm not sure how this is going to work, and that's probably not the right session to put on. You need to be confident in the session what you put on. Because if you go into a session and you're worried about it, the players will be able to tell that you're worried. And then they won't take, then they'll think, he doesn't know what he's on about. He's not even sure about this. So you've got to be confident. You've got to deliver that session confidently. So in that way, the players are thinking, yeah, that is good. I can see his point, and that will show. Because obviously the players' confidence in a coach is a big thing. And if they're coming out of a session going, oh, I'm not sure if he believes that's going to work, then they might not, they won't work as hard to try and implement what you're trying to get across. That's a big piece of advice what I'd give.
Perfect. Brilliant. Guys, that is it for us for today. Big thanks to Joe for taking time out and sharing his experiences and his views. Don't forget, you can follow us on Spotify at WM32Football and YouTube as well. So please give us a like, comment, and a subscribe on the channel as well. And we hope to see you again very, very soon. Cheers, Joe.
Thank you very much.
Not a problem. Cheers. See you later.